There we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our community meeting on Tuesday, August the 18th. I'm going to be heading it up solo today. Jess is on the road. She's just getting back from East India, and Wi-Fi has been spotty at best. I'm going to jump right in because we have 3 great guests today and 1 really cool announcement, so I don't want to waste too much time doing my own usual jibber jabber. I would like to talk about some of our recent partnerships, though. There's one that we've discussed briefly once or twice, but I want to just reiterate that we have this great partnership happening with the ocean ecosystem. So what we're doing right now is we're offering, in conjunction with Bounty's network, I believe it's a Bounty's network. Let me double check. This is why we need Jess here. Is we're offering bounties for litter collection, which is a really interesting way to sort of get bounties happening in the real world that people haven't done before. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, hit up our subreddit where we have some additional documentation. We have links to some blog posts, and we can provide some more details there. Recent events that have been happening in the real world in the last week is DisCon. We had a distributed consensus convention in Boulder where Jess actually did a presentation for us, which was pretty exciting. And when she gets back, we're going to make her tell us all about that. And like I said earlier, she was in India, which was enormously successful. And there's been a lot of great reception from that. Videos are being posted online. So if you're interested, do a Google search and see what we did. In the tech world, we had a great release recently. The developing team released the first alpha iteration of our MakerJS libraries, which we've been using on and off at different hackathons to great effect. If you're a developer and you're interested in expanding the ecosystem, or you have a tool in the works that you'd like to build on, definitely check it out and help us test it and give us your feedback. We'll have a gold release coming up soon, but we're looking for testers now. One of the biggest things that have been happening this week, though, is we've been teasing a new partnership. We've been rather coy about it, but the embargo has been lifted and the gloves are off. And so we have Mike Porcaro in the call with us, which is long overdue, I think. Mike, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us what you do at MakerDAO.
Great. Hey, you guys. My name's Mike. It is great to be here. So I joined Maker about in the beginning of April, and I oversee corporate communications. Can't be corporate since we're not a corporation. But my goal is to take all of the great stuff that's happening inside of Maker and inside of our community and figure out how to share those stories with the outside world in a way that helps people understand what's up, helps them understand the compelling nature of what Maker is doing with DAI and the opportunities in front of them. The goal of driving more people into the community and more usership or kind of investors in DAI and Maker. And so today we just announced, to Rich's point, we just put out a press release with talking about our relationship with Wyre. I'm lucky to be fueled with great news on a regular cadence from our amazing business development team. Greg is here so he can keep me honest about the nuts and bolts of the details on that partnership. But at the highest level, what we're doing with Wyre now is give people fiat on-ramps and off-ramps so they can go directly into DAI. And that's important for a few different reasons. Number one, for organizations who are interested in getting the benefits of crypto. Now they can do it without having to jump in and out of ETH first, which, as we're seeing in this last week or so, current time, is a benefit. Certainly to be able to just go straight into DAI so they can really have that one-to-one conversion. It also helps us with at a global level because Wyre serves people, I think they say, in like 30 countries around the world, so that makes it easier than ever to get in and out of DAI, one-to-one rate on the US dollar.
Yeah, that is fairly exciting. I think the velocity of DAI is something that we all need to be super concerned about. So is this announcement, is the Wyre integration targeted more towards vendors, or is it vendors and retail, or is it facilitating sort of businesses or end users?
Sure. Greg, this is where Greg for sure should jump in and keep me honest, but I'll just want to do one more piece of clarification. What's cool about Wyre is on-ramp and off-ramp, but also participating in their API with their development community, right? So that's another powerful way for scale. So people can go directly through Wyre, or services can build, or people can build services and elements on top of their API to build this directly into their individual businesses. Or offerings, excuse me. And so I think that's another really important element of scale. From who it serves, we've been in the current state really talking about like the developers who would want to use APIs, and then sort of more like at that kind of really looking at it more at like a business or an organization level versus the individual. But Greg, jump in and again, make sure I'm not telling tales.
Yeah, no, this integration is for everybody. I mean, think about how you go to Coinbase and you buy Bitcoin, Ether, or Litecoin. Now you can go to Wyre and buy DAI. And the way we internally think of DAI is as a portal to the blockchain. So you can now onboard yourself into a stable cryptocurrency and then use that stable cryptocurrency to do anything. The reason that the press release was targeted towards businesses is because we thought probably like our current community that was going to go to Wyre and buy DAI already did that. So, it was more important for us to target businesses in the announcement, make sure that they knew that there was this automation function through their API.
Yep. And what I would say is building on top of that, like there's a really nice through line we're starting to see. The last big announcement we made was to the news press was about TradeShift, right? And in that case, we were talking about, again, scaling organizations' access to the power of the blockchain. With but doing so in a way that's super stable. Wyre is a different, but another example of how MakerDAO is really kind of finding partnerships and relationships to help more people find a stable way to get the goodness that is the blockchain.
It seems like this partnership would be a great addition to the tool set as well. So the fiat on-ramp, off-ramp is something that other partnerships we're looking to make that they can leverage as well, right? So, Greg, is that something that you've been, that other partners have expressed interest in or asked questions about? Like when can they convert DAI?
It was probably our most demanded feature. I went to Rune at one point and I'm like, this is basically a part of our core product here. We can't scale without fiat on and off ramps, just the whole world uses fiat. So,
well, Coinbase just bought a bank, so maybe we could just do that and cut out the middleman.
Let's not give the lawyers a heart attack.
Yeah, you have to cut that out of the video. All right. So Mike, this is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time we've had you on one of the community meetings. Is that true?
I think it might have my second day. I popped in to say hi real quick, but I didn't have a whole lot of value. I mean, I'll let you guys judge if there's value add on this call, but back then there certainly wasn't. It was more of a face and name kind of thing.
I'm about to make you work for your food here. So tell us a bit about PR, because I know you're one of, I don't know if you don't get in front of the camera very often. Is what I mean, and you're one of our sort of emerging rock stars. Like you're bringing a lot to the table, and things are starting to happen more and more. And I'm not shy about kind of putting that at your door. So tell us about the sort of some of the challenges of getting PR working in the crypto space, which seems like kind of a PR unfriendly business to work in.
First of all, it's awesome to be here, and thanks for saying all those nice things about me. To your point about not being on camera, it's funny when you start in PR, it is hammered into your head. Never get quoted, never be on camera. Your job is to make the executive the star. So that is definitely my safe space. Feels better for me behind the scenes. But part of what we're trying to do here is, again, tell some killer, cool stories about Maker. And part of what drew me to the org was that we were going to do it in a way that aligns with my values, which is like authentic and real and based on action. So you'll see a couple of things in all of the programs that we do. Very rarely are we going to be talking about like plans for plans. That's a huge differentiator in the crypto space. And to your question about like what are some of the roadblocks, one of them is there's just not a lot of credibility in crypto, right? A lot of people announce things, talk about an idea of what will happen in the future at some point. And so it can feel a little frustrating at first when we're like, we've got something real here, still evolving, but it's real. Why aren't we getting the attention? So it's an incremental process. And what's been really cool with TradeShift, with Wyre, and then if we look at it on the other side with governance, the fact that these are things that are in play, right, wrong, or indifferent, they're happening. And that's really helping us build a public awareness for the credibility we have inside the community of being a project that's based on doing versus just talking about doing. And so that's been really cool. I would say a thing that is a roadblock right now is the press. They do not know how to cover crypto at all. So we kind of look at it in any industry. You've got sort of like an industry vertical, which would be in this case like the deep crypto publications. Okay, ones that are really into the weeds and they know everything. That's cool. They know about us. We want to keep those relationships strong, but they're speaking in many cases to an enthusiast community who are really going to be able to get in and out of the weeds. And so super important. We want to keep them happy and have strong relationships. But if our goal is to scale, we have to talk beyond them. And that means getting to sort of one day, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Fortune, your daily papers, what have you, websites. And what's interesting is right now when they cover crypto, they're either covering the bottom's falling out, sky, it's over. Ha ha, what a joke that whole thing was. Or they're covering, in the past, it was people who did sketchy stuff with crypto. Again, not just, whatever. And then the other bit was they'll cover funding. And so you'll hear, Circle gets 150 million.
Because there's already
right. And so, but the thing about those stories are that's not really moving the dialogue forward, right? Like they're just saying a business thing happened. It's super transactional. When you want to get into deeper conversations, a lot of them are still just trying to kind of grok what's up and figuring out how to cover it, where to cover it. And so we've been doing a lot of relationship building. One thing that's really cool is there is a publication called The Merkle, which is a crypto pub. And one of the people we built a relationship with was just poached by Forbes, and she's now in their crypto practice and building it for them. So we're seeing this world where a lot of the people at those vertical pubs are going more broad to help them figure out how do you reach a wider audience with a meaningful story. Like, how do you actually give people information that's not just sort of sensational? And so that's something that we're putting a lot of energy into making sure happens.
So the idea is to when you're pitching these ideas or these stories or things that have happened at Maker, the idea is this is interesting and good for this reason, and also it has to do with crypto as well. Like the banner is not this is crypto, where you run into this problem of the final paragraph in this article is going to be, oh, but it can go to zero and crypto might be fake all along or something.
Right. I mean, we are really focused on, and you'll see that in the tone of the TradeShift press release and in the Wyre press release, really talking about the benefit, right? Kind of helping people understand, why does this matter to you or to anyone inside the crypto world and beyond? I have to tell a story to a broad audience that's meaningful. That's kind of what I'm supposed to do here. And what I'll tell you is just a kind of shout out to anybody who can hear me, who's listening to me. We are looking for all kinds of really cool real world use cases. Right now, a lot of people are still getting caught up. As you guys know, I'm sure when you're talking to folks in your lives who are not in crypto, they can quickly get like lost in the details and it becomes esoteric feeling really fast. Real world use cases of DAI, real world examples of how people are benefiting from using DAI or a stable coin versus staying in a place of volatility or versus fiat, with like, getting down to as much detail as you can share is super valuable. So please feel free to @ me at MJ Porcaro if you've got ideas, or you can just kind of @ me in whatever room that you're in, because that's something that, and we'll work together. I'm not going to just throw the press at you immediately, but the idea is that we really want to be partners with the media to help them understand why this thing is good and why it's more than just a bunch of crypto, enthusiasts sitting in a room chatting with each other. Like, the wider world should hear about it.
So something they can grab onto other than just using the DAI as sort of a stable coin to escape volatility in an exchange.
Yeah, and so real world examples, and you'll see this is starting to happen. I think a couple other, just quickly, other trends. You're seeing a ton of energy now where big companies are starting to get involved. You know, the head of crypto or blockchain from IBM has been on the media rounds lately. That's a perfect example of where bigger press can figure out what to do with her because they know IBM. It's in, like, there's a 1 foot and really like a foot plus 9 toes all in a world that they understand. And she's just sort of like sprinkling some stories about how cool it can be. We still need to build that credibility and those relationships so we can have Rune and Greg and all of our leaders and all of our community members all over the press telling powerful stories. That's the host.
That's great. Jordan, you had a question. Did you want to jump on camera really quick, or are you uncamable right now?
I'll hear the chat.
Give him a couple of seconds. Oh, he's in a loud area. I'll read out the question. Jordan asks, does the PR landscape in crypto remind you of other emergent technologies or industries from your experience? So have you been through this before?
It does. You know what's interesting? This is going to just show you what an old man I am. So I launched a million years ago. I started my career in consumer tech. So like cool electronics. And the very first ebook in the world was my client. And I was like straight out of college. And I had to get publishers to even understand what digital rights were. I had to get readers to understand what an ebook was. And then I had to get both of them to not be afraid of the future and also understand what it can do and why it would be, like, what the use case is. We're not trying to replace paper books, but there's a lot of use cases where this would be really like a smart and powerful solution. And it was cool, but everyone you talked to, you had to go way back to basics. You had to have a conversation to help them understand. And, you know, however many years later, 20 years later, there's Kindles. It's like reading on your device is totally not even a question. But back in the day, they were like, well, that's insane. I got a paper book. Why are you even wasting my time right now? So this obviously has an opportunity to happen at much bigger scale. But I would say that throughout my career, I've worked on things where it's like, people don't see the benefit of it. My goal is to sort of introduce new things and help people understand why it matters and also not be afraid to change.
Jordan has a question. The other Jordan Crandall has a question. So what are some real world use cases for DAI that you think can be relevant to normal people in the next 2 years? I know you just asked us, but what are some of your ideas?
Yeah, trick question. I would like to hear from you guys, but I would say that the elements that are interesting would be, you know, an example of, like right now, are there examples of organizations or people who were able to see some sort of massive growth or avoid a massive pitfall because they were into DAI, right, into a stable coin? Is there a way where life has become much more efficient, you know, and that has then bred beautiful outcomes that never would have happened before because people are using DAI? Is there a place where people who couldn't have really like benefited from micropayments because they were just unable to actually happen, were able to collect little bits of DAI and now start their world anew or have a better experience as a result? I'll give you a quick example from a past world of mine. I launched a product in rural India that helped farmers get a better price on their crops without getting way in the weeds. Basically, in the olden days, if you were a farmer and you had a crop, you kind of went to the local market and you got the price the person was going to buy it for, the market agent, or the money agent. So now what would happen is on basic text, a lot of these, you know, the people we were working with were illiterate, but they could read they could understand text in their phone and they would understand, like, recognize crop and price. We were able to use GPS to help them say, okay, in these 3 markets that are all equidistant from you, this person's going to pay X, X plus 1, X minus 2. Then they can make the choice on which market to go to. And as a result, we heard stories of people who were like, I was able to, because of this benefit of using your solution, I could put my kid through school, which I was unable to do before. Or now I could buy, more things for my family to help us get out, kind of like start a new path. So those would be really cool examples of that. Sorry if I'm rambling.
Can I just add that, for normal people, most of them won't know they're using DAI. It's going to be in the back end of these systems, and it's going to be a huge efficiency gain for the business that'll pass those efficiency gains onto the users. But at the end of the day, that end user probably never has to personally interact with the blockchain.
It's interesting, this sort of duality here, because in developed countries, the chances are that DAI will be, like you said, facilitating back office sort of transactions as a bridge token. But on the flip side, in emerging economies, it's entirely possible that DAI will simply replace those back office systems completely. So it's sort of like when we saw that jump from, in emerging developing countries, that jump from internet straight into wireless or phone-based computing, where in these new economies we might see that they're just going to skip the cash and skip the bank accounts altogether and go straight into DAI.
Yeah, I would say from my perspective, helping the again, because I want to speak stories directly to end users, but through the media. So helping them with something that is both really evocative and illustrative as sort of the hook. And then, with TradeShift, we were like, there's $9 trillion owed to small businesses, small, medium businesses at any moment, according to the World Trade Organization. This will help them crack that and cut that time down to near instant using DAI. And, they were like, oh, okay, well, that feels different than buying a bunch of Lambos, right? So now we're, it's all kind of incremental and helping them think about it. So anyway.
All right, that's awesome. Thanks.
Normal, right? I just mean like people who are outside of the enthusiast world. So that's not a pejorative to us.
All right, we have two other guests. Thanks, Mike. That was amazing. We're going to have you back again, actually, because there's more content to be mined here. So,
absolutely. Thanks, you guys. You can find me in Rocket Chat.
All right, Mariano, you've been sitting there patiently waiting. Why don't you give us an introduction and sort of let us know what you're up to at MakerDAO?
Is it me? I didn't hear you.
Sorry, yeah. Introduce yourself to us and let us know what you do at MakerDAO.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Mariano, community lead from South America, and well, I work with Lenka, with culture, and all the marketing people, getting DAI to be known widely in the South America continent. I was hearing Mike, and I want to add something to that. For example, I'm kind of close to Venezuela, and we have some real use cases there. Okay, we have to think about that. In Venezuela, minimum wage is $3 per month. Okay, so cryptocurrencies are like it's not like the new thing, because a lot of people in Venezuela knows a lot about cryptocurrencies, and they are using to buy like some very basic stuff. I mean, they are not using it as a financial instrument or to hedge against something. They are using it to buy food. Okay, and sorry to like lower the energy of the meeting with this, but this is something that I think that Maker needs to work on, and I want also with Nadia this step here in Argentina that we want to attack, right? I think Venezuela is a great opportunity, and for example, I was very happy when I read the 20% principle, right? I know that it's going to be modified at some point, but I guess that we need to work with that with Venezuela, because we can make a social impact like no other technology could make. Okay? And this is something that maybe is kind of outside of the crypto world, maybe, but no, I'm in Argentina, so that is close to Venezuela. And for example, Venezuela is having like I think it was like 3 million or $4 million of daily Bitcoin transactions, just in local Bitcoin. And talking with people from Venezuela, they told me, Mariano, I had to work really, really, really hard to get a Bitcoin or to get a portion of the Bitcoin. And I do not want to send payment in something that later can be like an expensive payment for me because Bitcoin, uh, the value of the Bitcoin goes up, right?
Well, actually, I have a question for you here, and this might be difficult for you to answer, but it's been puzzling me for a while. Why do you think that there isn't more interest in stable currencies in these sort of inflationary markets? Like, why aren't Venezuelans looking for something that's locks up value as opposed to a speculative asset? Is it because they just don't know that there's stable coins out there, or are they actually looking for a potential return in the future off of Bitcoin?
Yeah, the thing is, for example, it is far easier for them to have Bitcoin because they have a cheap electricity. Okay, so last 2 years, Venezuela was like the mining center of South America, but not now because, like, as far as I know, I think there are some problems with the government and people that is mining. So much of the mining companies and all, and yeah, mining companies are moving to Paraguay. That's something that I want to tell you after this. And they want stable coins because they obviously they don't want to pay in something that can gain value uh, later on, right? And one thing that I saw doing a research in Venezuela is they are starting to flourish some applications that have listed all the shops and grocery shops that accept cryptocurrency as payments. There is one widely known in Venezuela. It's called Crypto Lugares. The rough translation would be like crypto places, in which you can shop groceries directly from the application.
I was under the impression that spending and holding cryptocurrencies was dangerous in Venezuela. Is that not true? You can spend it openly. That's it.
Yeah, you can spend them. Yes.
You just mining is the
Mining
dangerous.
is the yes, it's the dangerous thing to dangerous is just the word, right? But yes, it's like not allowed by the government, as far as I know. And that leads us to Paraguay. I've been in Paraguay the last week, and I've been gathering with a lot of people from the government, and something very cool is happening in Paraguay. It's a very small country, very stable country in South America. They had like last year 4% annual inflation, and I met with the president of the CNB. CNB is like the very same thing like the SEC, okay, the Security Exchange Commission, but for Paraguay. And I asked them about their stance on cryptocurrency, and they told me, see, Mariano, we don't want to stifle innovation, okay, but we are not also legitimizing cryptocurrency yet because we don't know what is it, okay. But they have, they told me that they have a very, very interesting program there that it's called maquilas, okay, and they are like they let the mining companies to be under this economic program, and this economic program allows you to have very very cheap electricity and almost no tax for your economic activity. Okay, so this president of the CNB told me that a lot of mining companies are starting to move to Paraguay. Okay, because of the cheap
What's
electricity.
their incentive for doing that? What's their motivation? Are they just hoping to build out infrastructure or tax privilege?
Motivation is tax, cheap electricity, stable economy, and lots of dollars on the country. Because another thing that this person told me is that the average investor in Paraguay do not want dollars. They want guarani. They feel like their currency is like a stable currency. It's a very good currency, and all the investments are done in guarani. That is the national currency of Paraguay. So those four ingredients, again, this would be like availability of dollars, low taxes, cheap electricity, and somehow um, a good infrastructure are calling the attention of the mining companies. I know he told me that, for example, three companies from Canada are going to establish mining facilities in Paraguay, and a couple from China too. They are waiting, for example, I think Bitmain is going to have another model of a miner, so they are waiting for that. But he told me that in the next 3 years, Paraguay will be like the liquidity center for crypto in South America. And I think that they are right if all these mining facilities are located there, right?
Well, that's fascinating. So, how would you rate the general awareness of cryptocurrencies in South America? Do you find that the average person or the average business is as aware as maybe North America, or more or less?
Argentina has a very big crypto scene. In fact, I was reading the last week that I think that is the second or third country that has more crypto-related business. And we have two kind of people, right? We have the technological one, okay? We have a lot of developers here in Argentina. We have a, you know, we are like a cheap country in terms of labor cost, and we have a lot of freelancers developing from companies outside Argentina, and that leads us to be like always at the edge of technology, and blockchain development in Argentina is booming right now.
You're cutting out a bit there. Sorry, Mariano. Can you repeat that?
Yes, we have in Argentina a lot of software factory for blockchain projects.
Mm.
Okay, that they are working um, for all companies of the world. And we have like a financial institution that they are starting to be interested in crypto a lot. They play a bit with crypto. Last year, they saw, well, as everyone else, they saw a very good returns, and they are starting to create these departments, these crypto departments, in their organizations. And well, at least in Argentina, we are seeing that these financial institutions they want to jump into crypto, but they need to do it like very cautiously because they are like a regulated entities. So that's the thing.
When you say financial institutions, do you mean banks or do you mean trading houses? Or
Trading houses, and we are seeing right now in Argentina a boom of digital banks. That's like a new thing that the government allowed here. That to be a bank, you don't need to have a building. You can make a 100% digital onboarding through your application, and those kind of banks are starting to realize that crypto is something. It's not a fad. It's something that came here to stay and to develop the economy.
that's cool. Yeah, it's another reason why I want to move to Argentina, I think. Um, so, how difficult do you find to explain to people what a stable currency is, or do you find that the concept is readily understood there?
No, the concept is it's understood, but I think that we need, or I have as a community lead two big challenges, right? The first one is to explain a CDP, okay? And that is a very technical thing to explain, but uh, people people understand CDPs when you make analogies banks and their mortgage, okay, house mortgage, something like that. And this is a tool that helps me a lot to explain CDPs. But the most interesting part of the community development here is to explain what you can do with DAI. Something that Greg said, that you probably you will not be aware that DAI is moving on the back or something like that. And that's the thing that they want to know more. They are very interested using DAI as that like settlement between the real world and the digital world, right? The blockchain world, or as our our motto, unlocking the power of blockchain, right?
That's very cool. So, what are some initiatives that you have on the go now? Or do you have any major? I know you just started, so that's probably not a fair question. So,
No,
but
no.
is there any?
I have a few. For example, I'm contacting here in Argentina. An organization is called Blockchain for Social Impact, and I want to work with them to start looking use cases around Venezuela, okay, and possible other inflationary economies. And the other thing that we are working really hard with Nadia is to um, start the exchange adoption. We need, or we want, with Nadia, we did a promise. We need to have all the exchanges in South America with DAI, right? And I guess that is our like very the very big challenge that we have here, the very first big challenge that we have here, because as Greg said, liquidity is for us.
All right, well that's great. We're coming up on 20 minutes left, so I'm gonna have to cut this short. So I want to talk to Vamsi still. Thanks for that. And as always, keep a desk open for me because I'm gonna get there somehow.
Sure, sure.
All right, thanks a lot. Hi Vamsi, how you doing? You still there?
Yeah, I'm here, Rich.
Great. Can you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing at MakerDAO?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Vamsi Alluri. I'm part of the integrations engineering team here. So work out of the Santa Cruz office. So what do I do? It's been like, I think 2 weeks, week 2 at MakerDAO. Although I would say like I was an active lurker for a long time before that. I wouldn't consider I joined MakerDAO like 2 weeks back. So the goal of the integrations team is to essentially like help the I mean, if you would have seen like the last like few months, we've had like a ton of announcements. Probably I don't think like any other project in the space had like that volume of announcements. So it's like, so we have all these like partnerships lining up, but then actual integration with them like would require some effort, some technical effort. So we work very closely with like the business development team, making sure that all our partners like are like basically onboarding like the partners, making sure that they understand our tech stack all the way from the the smart contract level to the SDKs to the UI components. So wherever they feel comfortable integrating with us, like helping them like navigate that. So I would say like that's a core.
That's useful information because I actually didn't know that. I wasn't entirely sure what integrations did. So do you guys actually write custom code to support our partners, or is it more educational?
That's a good question. So I think for a few partners we do write custom code because like I mean we are dependent on all the components that like the core teams develop. But then sometimes like there's always this additional smart contract. Like for instance, like maybe a partner wants like an ERC20 token but a permissioned one. Like that only works. That only allows like a certain set of participants like in their community transfers between them. So we develop like a custom smart contract for that. Sometimes they like not everybody in the space that we integrate with understand like or want to even deal with smart contracts. So sometimes we develop like a custom JS SDK service so to make their lives easier, and then like they can just plug into that. So
that's cool. So was that the motivation for the MakerJS library, to sort of make integrations with third parties easier?
Yeah, two things. One, like making sure that not everyone has to deal with our smart contracts directly, or like there's always like I mean when you're building a front end app or like a backend service, there's always like like there's always an amount of redundant code that everyone has to like write in terms of like let's say creating transactions, like talking, like signing a transaction, like checking whether a transaction has mined, checking whether a CDP has been created, whether it has been bitten, whether it's like safe, unsafe. So there's all these like base level actions that everybody has to like I wouldn't say interface with, but like all the applications would have to like understand. So the JS SDK like gives everybody that. And then on top of that, yeah.
So that's cool. So the requirements gathering was mostly integrating with or dealing with their integration partners and trying to figure out what they need, and that informed the MakerJS library. Wow, that's cool. We have a question already. I don't want to cut you off so soon, but Jordan Crandall was wondering how well integrated the Tradeshift partnership is. So I guess maybe you have to be kind of careful not to spill the beans on stuff that we haven't announced yet. But was there a lot of work involved with getting, or is it even ongoing, getting Tradeshift integrated with the backend?
Yeah, definitely. It's like, so usually like sometimes the integrations are just like, hey, here's let's say an exchange wants to like integrate DAI, then all we have to do is like essentially just give them like the contract address of DAI. Usually like everybody understands the ERC20 token standard. With Tradeshift, it's definitely more involved. It's more involved because it's like, there are components like on the again, I'm not directly working on this project yet, so I might be slightly off. But what I can say is that it's slightly more involved in terms of like we're definitely writing additional smart contracts to support the use case, helping them like with that part, adding like custom services to the JavaScript SDK, and then like they take care of the other part, which is integrating them into the interface.
That's cool. So. You mentioned exchanges, and Tradeshift is obviously the big example of a partnership. But what other types of integrations do you guys end up doing? Is it mostly focusing on tool sets, or is there custom stuff? Is it usually custom work, or is it?
So when it comes to an integration, I think it's like it's definitely at various levels. Like I said, like it's like most of the time. I mean, the beauty about the space is it's probably like unheard of like in the traditional world. I'm calling it traditional tech world, but usually it's like every integration starts with a conversation. Like you rarely hear the concept of like, I mean, even in the API world, it's like somebody has integrated and built a product on your platform without you knowing about it. Like this is happening here. Like a lot of integrations like happen even before like somebody like actually talks to us. So I would say like it makes the job easier, obviously, especially with like Ethereum building like robust standards. But what I've realized fairly recently is like there are a lot of integrations. It's not just one-to-one where somebody is just integrating DAI or like the CDP infrastructure. It's like two different partners for whom like we are the common connection. So we are at a unique place where we are able to find these like relationships in the ecosystem because we talk to like practically like everyone in the space, and we understand like everybody's needs, and we're able to match them like more in the most efficient process. We know exactly like who has what to offer. Like for example, pairing an exchange with a loans provider. I'm just throwing this off the top of my head, like or like pairing someone who has an interesting need, but then it's like it's not us solving the problem directly for them, or it's not DAI itself, like or a CDP or our SDK library solving it, but one of our other partners whom we know is like on that, working on that issue. So it's like the first level integrations are like probably the easiest, where it's like pretty much on autopilot, like can be done. But finding these relationships in the ecosystem, I think, is like, I wouldn't say challenging, but makes the job like really more interesting.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said that, because I spend my time doing a lot of exactly the same thing, talking to people in the community or organizations where they're interested in something that we don't necessarily do, but I do know the 4 or 5 people that they should talk to in order to get that figured out. And then once they're done, they can come back and talk to us again. So that's cool.
Yeah.
The other thing you said was really interesting too, is that you said you said that most people already have integrations underway, or sometimes they're already pretty far down the road before they speak to you, and it seems like that's an interesting point to make. So as part of the sort of open nature and decentralized nature, the fact that in a tradition, when I say traditional, I mean the startup world, which I think is traditional now compared to crypto, but in the startup world, people would have a private API that they would open up to a partner after a deal was arranged. But in this world, those contracts, that blockchain is already there. And so anybody can start building anything they want. And then by the time you find out about it, it's already halfway there, which is really cool.
And what's, I think, like even more interesting about the space, like again, what would be like really cool about like my job would be like the thing that the space, like, I mean, if you could probably like look at, I don't know, I mean, I don't have a number in my mind, but the aggregate market cap of like projects that are like building actual products on Ethereum. And if you look at like the amount of things that this group is trying to achieve is probably like, I mean, it's a lot. Basically the reason I think everybody is able to achieve like an outsized impact compared to the amount of the capital or like the talent that they have is because there's no mistrust, or there is probably like a lesser amount of mistrust between two companies like operating in the space, because the point of integration is at the smart contract level where I can't like in the API world, like if I see like a partner like who's about to like make more money than me, like by being dependent on my APIs, the immediate reaction of like an executive would be like, hey, like shut the API down, charge them more, like change the terms after a successful partnership is in place. So that's like that has been like I would say, I mean, the closest example that I can think about is like Uber, who couldn't like use the maps from their like largest investor, Google. That's like you're coming from a world where the amount of mistrust is that high to a world where like you're like you have like like probably I would say like 40 different like decentralized exchanges cooperating on like a single like smart contract like that takes care of like the base level functionality. So I guess like the larger point that I want to make is like integrations like is where like different projects trying to cooperate with each other and building like focusing on like what their differentiating aspect is and leaving the rest to everybody else like to take care of, and building this giant like machine like together is what's different. And that changes like I would say like it could probably change like the way maybe like I would have worked like in the API world versus like how like I would have to like work here. So
yeah, that's a really good point. So in the traditional software space, you charge you threshold and you charge per hits, and you try to monetize that access to data. But in our space, it's the drive is to create partnerships. The drive is to get people to use the infrastructure. That's weird. So it's sort of a knock-on effect of this distribution of value and micropayments and who's paying for what. Once the transaction ends up on the user, as opposed to the organization providing the data, then this incentive to integrate with everything is far greater, right? So that's really cool. I have to think about that for a while. So you've only been, sorry, when did you start at Maker? It was a couple of weeks, right?
August, yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, so you're still brand new. So you're still getting kind of up to speed. So what do you think is the most interesting challenge with working in this space as opposed to the crypto space? I mean, the traditional software space.
Yeah, what keeps me awake at night? So it's I think like a lot like I've been like I think that this happened like twice in the last like 2 weeks, where let's say there's a particular challenge. For example, like one could be essentially my job is to maintain like relationships with all these partners, right? Who are about to use like either like DAI or like the CDP infrastructure. So usually it's like sometimes it's like there are like only everything can't be automated. And by what I mean by that is like we definitely know that in the future, like a few months down the line, we'll have like DAI version 2 that would have like its own set of contracts. But it doesn't mean that today, like in the integration, like we can tell the partner, don't worry about like let's hard code like like basically like instead of like hard coding the instead of like taking the address which is today be dependent on me to give you like the correct address of DAI like at any point in the future. That part can't be automated because like essentially like there's no centralized party like that the partner can trust, not even us, to give them like what address of DAI, like what is the right contract for DAI. There are like bits like that. It's just because like the space is so it's different, and not everything can be automated. So
yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say the space is new as well, and we're just getting to the point in this industry where people are actually building things that are being used by real people. It's just kind of starting now, and so what you're saying is we're going to run into problems, or we could run into problems soon, where a major organization that's providing large parts of the infrastructure of the system decides to do an upgrade or has a flaw in their contract or something. It's going to have a lot of effects on other partnerships, right? Because everything is so interrelated.
It's mainly like everything can't be automated, and that means like the communication channels like with everyone that we have should be like really robust, and like I mean it's either this or that, right? If the channels are not that robust and like they're not able to like we're building this together as an organization. So the channels like between partners also have to be as robust as like an internal Slack environment where like I can just ping like a team member. So it's like it has like both upsides and downsides. We just can't like take the upside and leave the downside. That would end up in a.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have 6 different chat applications open right now, so I can talk to people in different organizations. So it's part of the communication problem.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So we're coming up on the end of the meeting, though. I'm sorry I got to you so late because this was actually pretty interesting. Is there anything else that you wanted to fill us in on, or any other major events that are happening in the integrations world?
No,
All right, well, cool. At least now I understand what it is you do. I think that we'll probably have more questions for you in the future because there's a lot of really interesting things happening there. So thanks for that.
Thanks.
I just want to add about integrations. The business development is tremendously indebted to them because I would say more often than not, they are the difference between whether we can close a deal or not. Because a lot of our partners are unfamiliar with blockchain technology, and being able to offer that assistance is usually what gets us over the threshold.
Well, that's a great point. All right. Well, thanks for that, Greg. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Unless there's another question, we can probably squeeze one in. Clock is ticking though. Thanks, Mariano, for joining us. Thanks, Mike. I know that you're probably working on something else right now. Thanks, Vamsi, for joining us. That was great. I think that's probably it. All right. It's going up on YouTube soon, so watch out for the video there. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.